And it is noted that there are still many things that are not entirely clear regarding the small business regulation, and that there are often uncertainties or a lack of knowledge about certain facts. And I thought to myself, I'll just make a video about it and explain to you what you should actually know about the small business regulation, which many people are unaware of. Fact no. You do not have to take advantage of the small business regulation. I keep hearing this from people who are starting a business, perhaps part-time, and initially have low revenues, thinking, oh, I am still a small business owner because I have such low revenues. But this reasoning is not correct at all. You can also opt for regular taxation from the very first day and choose to handle the entire value-added tax process if you wish. Completely independent of whether you are making losses, have no revenue, or just have low revenue, you can choose at any time to show value-added tax on your invoice and submit a value-added tax return. Therefore, in some areas, it does make sense to do it this way. I have recorded a separate video on this, which you can find here. If it is more convenient for you, you can also be treated as a regular large business for value-added tax purposes from the very first day and do not have to take advantage of the small business regulation in between. The value-added tax return. As a small business owner, you still have to submit a value-added tax return, even if you do not have to pay value-added tax. With many customers, they believe, I'm a small business under small business rules, I don't charge or submit value-added tax. And from that, they conclude that they have nothing to do with the whole topic of value-added tax and are always very surprised when I tell them that we still have to prepare a value-added tax return for them. The reason why this is the case is actually quite logical, because the small business regulation is based on certain revenue thresholds that must be adhered to. And how is the tax office supposed to know how much revenue you have made and whether you are still a small business owner or perhaps not anymore if you never inform them? This notification occurs within the framework of the value-added tax return. Therefore, as a small business owner, you must also submit a value-added tax return. This is admittedly relatively simple. You just need to enter the basic data once, you need to enter the revenue once, and then there is a field that you should fill out, or more specifically, check a box indicating that you were a small business owner in the relevant year 2001, then you will not have to pay value-added tax, but at least you have informed the tax office about your current revenue. Therefore, please remember to submit this declaration. Otherwise, it could lead to negative consequences for you. Fact no. The small business regulation is not always better. I also hear regularly and read everywhere again that the small business regulation is easier and that founders should choose it because it is better for them. I cannot confirm that, because it is true that a small business owner does not have to show value-added tax on their invoices, does not have to submit a value-added tax return, and therefore does not have to pay value-added tax to the tax office. So far, so good. However, he pays for this right under this privilege with the price that, on the other hand, he has no input tax deduction. That means all the invoices he receives from his service providers, suppliers, and so on, also include value-added tax. And this value-added tax, he can claim it, and he can get this money back from the tax office. For example, a laptop costs gross approximately plus 190 value-added tax. In total, a small business owner must account for all expenses in their bookkeeping. The entrepreneur who has opted for the regular taxation system for value-added tax purposes and is simply subject to normal taxation can reclaim this 190 value-added tax from the tax office and ultimately pays only for this laptop. This means that for the regular entrepreneur, this laptop is cheaper. And this applies not only to the laptop but to everything else as well. And that's why you should consider, if you are just starting out and becoming self-employed, what is ultimately more beneficial for you. If you have high initial investments and need to purchase many things, the small business regulation is often disadvantageous for you because you cannot claim this input tax. And you should calculate this carefully to see whether it is worthwhile or if the small business regulation might even be disadvantageous for you. And what we can conclude is the statement that the small business regulation is generally the better choice for founders, which is simply incorrect. Fact number 4. You must correct your invoices during the year or you suddenly have to show value-added tax after you have reached the euro revenue threshold. I often hear this fact, but it is incorrect. That means it is not true. What is correct is that the small business regulation has 2 revenue thresholds. Specifically, you cannot exceed the revenue from the previous year and are expected to be below that this year. And this word expected is extremely important because it refers to what you have at the beginning of the year, theoretically, on January 1st. What revenue do you expect to make this year? This is the estimate in question. And if you are on January 1st, assuming you make revenue from that, then you are a small business owner for the entire year. You don't have to switch back and forth at all during the year, even if your actual revenue should be $500,000, which is a factor of 10 higher. You are still considered a small business owner for the entire year and can issue your invoices without value-added tax for the whole year. Sure, next year you won't be a small business owner anymore because next year, on January 1st. So, a theoretical thought experiment. On January 1st, you sit down and look at what revenue I generated in the previous year. Was I below the threshold? No, I am clearly above it. Then you will no longer be a small business owner next year. But to summarize, we can say that the statement about switching out of the small business regulation mid-year and suddenly having to charge value-added tax or correct invoices because you have exceeded certain revenue thresholds is not accurate. Fact number 5 relates to the reverse charge procedure, or Section B of the value-added tax law, which states that services from companies based in the EU, in particular, must be taxed in Germany, specifically as per the regulations. This is known as the reverse charge mechanism. This means that you, as the recipient of the service, must tax the service that others have provided for you in Germany. It becomes a bit clearer with an example. For example, if you want to run ads on Instagram, you go to Instagram and set up the ads. So far, so good. Your business partner is Facebook. Facebook has its European headquarters in Ireland. This means that you now have a business relationship with an Irish company, and this Irish company provides a service for you, specifically that they display your advertisements. For this, you pay an amount, for example, to Facebook in Ireland. What many people do not know is that they must pay 19% value-added tax on these advertising costs in Germany. Self-employed individuals and entrepreneurs who are subject to regular taxation do not even notice this, because while they have to pay 190 in value-added tax, they can simultaneously claim this 190 as input tax. That means it is simply plus or minus, and it has dissolved, and in the end, nothing needs to be paid. This is a big issue for small business owners. Small business owners do not have this input tax deduction. This means that when small business owners advertise on Instagram, they must pay the 19% value-added tax. They have to do this. Every entrepreneur in Germany must. What they do not have, however, is the input tax deduction, which means they cannot make money immediately. This means that as a small business owner, for every payment to the EU abroad for a service provided to your business, you must pay taxes again in Germany because you, as the recipient of the service, are liable for tax. In fact, very few people are aware of this. However, I would like to emphasize that you please do not forget this in the future and take care of this taxation in Germany. I hope this video was helpful to you and answered your question. However, if you still have an open question, you can find a comment section below this video where you can ask us that question. Otherwise, to conclude, I have 3 tax tips for you. First tax tip, you should subscribe to this channel. Second, make sure to carefully watch this entire video from start to finish, as it contains crucial information that you need to understand. Third, remember that too. It is very important to grasp the concept thoroughly, as it will help you in the long run.